All right, everyone. So let's talk about these new AI tools we're rolling out. We've all seen them do some pretty incredible stuff, right? I mean, drafting a complex motion, summarizing a massive deposition in seconds. It's amazing. But here's the wild part, the paradox we're going to dig into. What if I told you that AI, it doesn't understand a single point of law it just wrote about? Not one. How on earth is that possible?
Right? That's the question, isn't it? Because the results feel so smart. They look competent. You read it and think, wow, this thing gets it. But is there really a mind behind the curtain, or is it something else entirely? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
So here's how we'll break it down. We'll start with what I'm calling the prediction paradox. Then we'll peek inside the AI's so-called brain. After that, we'll see how it goes from just raw data to a useful assistant. We'll ask the big question, is it a mind or just a mimic? And finally, we'll talk about what this all means for us, for your new AI partner.
Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1, the prediction paradox. And I'm not kidding, if you can really get your head around this one single idea, everything else about how this AI works is going to click into place.
So, you've probably heard this before, right? People call it autocomplete on steroids. And you know what? It's actually a pretty great way to start thinking about it. But, and this is a big but, the steroids in that analogy are doing some seriously heavy lifting. We're talking way, way beyond just guessing the next word in an email.
So, what is this thing really doing? At its absolute most fundamental level, the answer is almost shockingly simple. It's a prediction engine. That is it. Its entire job, the one and only thing it is ever trying to do, is to calculate the most likely next word in a sentence. Think about that. Every motion it drafts, every deposition it summarizes, it all comes from that one simple task.
Okay, let's use a super simple example to make this crystal clear. If you give the AI the phrase, Mary had a little, it doesn't know the nursery rhyme. It has no idea who Mary is. It doesn't have a concept of pets. What it's done is look at trillions of words from all over the internet and just crunch the numbers. And based on that data, it's calculated a 99.9% probability that the next word is lamb. It's just a numbers game, plain and simple.
All right, now let's bring this back to our world, to what we do every day. You type in, the statute of limitations for negligence is... Look, the AI hasn't gone to law school. It definitely has not passed the bar. What it has done is analyze an unbelievable number of legal documents, briefs, court opinions, statutes, and it's calculated that the words 2 years have an incredibly high probability of coming next in that sequence. It's a pattern matcher on an absolutely epic scale.
Okay, so you might be thinking, hang on, how does that one simple trick, just guessing the next word, turn into something that can draft a whole legal argument? Fair question. To answer that, we've got to peek inside the AI's brain.
Well, it all starts with turning our language into its language, math. A computer doesn't understand motion to dismiss. It understands numbers. So the first step is called tokenization. It just chops our words and sentences into little pieces called tokens. You can think of them like Lego bricks for language. And then, and this is where the magic starts, each of those little Lego bricks gets turned into a string of numbers, a coordinate. This is called an embedding.
What this does is create a gigantic map of language. I mean, picture this huge multidimensional space. Every word, every concept has its own coordinate on this map. And the cool thing is, things with similar meanings end up being neighbors. So king is mathematically very close to queen. And for us, this is everything. The AI figures out that motion to dismiss should be plotted in the same neighborhood as motion for summary judgment. It learns that deposition and interrogatory are closely related. It has no clue what they mean, but it knows from the data that they hang out together. Now, this next part, this was the real breakthrough. For the longest time, older AIs try to read like we do, one word at a time. The problem? They had horrible memories. By the time they got to the end of a long contract, they'd completely forgotten what was at the beginning. Useless. But then came something called the transformer architecture, and instead of reading word by word, it looks at the entire document at once. This gave it a superpower called self-attention. So in a simple sentence like, the cat sat on the mat because it was tired, self-attention is the mechanism that lets the AI figure out that it refers to the cat and not the mat. Now imagine applying that to a 50-page ruling or a long rambling client email. This ability to understand context across an entire document, I mean, this was a massive, massive leap forward for this technology.
So we've got this incredible architecture that can understand context. But how does it go from just being a raw piece of tech to a useful assistant? Well, it basically goes through a really intense 3-step education.
Step 1 is pre-training. Basically, they just unleash it on a huge portion of the internet and say, go learn the patterns of how humans write. That's it. But that's not enough. So step 2 is instruction tuning. This is where humans step in and teach it to follow commands. We teach it that when we say, summarize this deposition transcript, it should, well, summarize it. And then the third, final step is reinforcement learning from human feedback. That's where tons of people rate its answers, giving a thumbs up or thumbs down, fine-tuning it to be more helpful and less, well, weird. And you have to understand, those last 2 steps are absolutely crucial for turning this raw prediction machine into a useful legal assistant.
Okay, so this brings us to the million-dollar question, and it has some really practical consequences for our work. Is there actually a mind in there, or are we just looking at the most sophisticated parrot in history?
And you can't really talk about this stuff without bringing up the famous Chinese room thought experiment. Imagine this. You're locked in a room. You don't speak a word of Chinese. People slide questions under the door written in Chinese characters. But you have a giant set of rule books that tell you, if you see this symbol, write down that symbol. You follow the rules, slide the answer back out, and to the person outside, it looks like they're having a fluent conversation with you. But you don't understand a single thing. You're just manipulating symbols based on rules. The argument is, that's exactly what this AI is doing. It's mastered the rules of language, the syntax, but it has zero, and I mean zero, understanding of the meaning behind it, the semantics.
And look, this isn't just some philosophical debate. This has very real, very critical consequences for legal work. These limitations are baked into its DNA. For starters, they hallucinate, which is just a polite way of saying they make things up. They will confidently cite case law that does not exist. They have absolutely no common sense. Their reasoning can be weirdly fragile. You can change one tiny part of your prompt and a perfectly good argument just falls apart. And they have a limited memory, or what's called a context window.
So what's a context window? An early model had a limit of about 4,000 tokens. Think of that as its short-term memory. That's it. That's the entire whiteboard it has to work with. So if you feed it a case file that's longer than that, it literally starts erasing the beginning to make room for the end. And this is key. These aren't bugs that will get fixed. They are fundamental features of what this technology is.
So where does that leave us? What does this all mean for our work here at DeMarco? Let's get into our final section, your new AI partner.
I think the single most important takeaway here is this. We have not built a junior associate in a box. That's not what this is. In the quest to build an artificial human intelligence, we accidentally stumbled on something else entirely. Something new, something powerful, and something truly alien. It does not think the way we do.
So the goal is not to create an artificial lawyer. The goal is to build a human-in-the-loop system. It's all about pairing your expertise, your judgment, with the AI's, frankly, insane ability to process and predict language. Just remember this. You are the mind. It is the mimic. You are the expert. It is the tool.
And so that leaves us with the final, most important question. The big question for us as a firm isn't, is this going to replace us? The real question is, how do we learn to think and work alongside this powerful, strange, and brand new kind of intelligence? How do we leverage it to do better work and serve our clients in ways we couldn't before? That is the challenge, but it's also the incredible opportunity that's right in front of us.